My girlfriend called me her logistics manager after I caught her cuddling her married work husband. I had spent $4,032 on her 30th birthday, so I quietly canceled everything. That night, she walked into the luxury restaurant with her friends in formal dresses, expecting me to handle the details until the host handed her the refund receipt with my 5-word note on it. I'm Mark. I'm 33. Project manager. I'm good at timelines, logistics, execution. It's how my brain works. And somewhere over the years it became how I operated in relationships too. I notice what needs doing and I handle it. I used to think that made me reliable. I'm still figuring out what it actually made me. Maya and I had been together for 3 years. She was turning 30 inches 8 days when this happened. I own the apartment we share. She moved in about 18 months before all this. I carry the mortgage. She covers utilities. When we first worked out that arrangement, she said she wanted to contribute meaningfully. We agreed on the split. I didn't look too hard at the numbers. The birthday had been 2 months in the making. The Vein is the kind of place that books out months in advance. I'd put down $1,800 as a deposit back in January, arranged a hotel suite for the night, and had a custom jewelry piece being designed. I'd also been running a coordination thread with her 3 closest friends, Sarah, Jen, and Qley, covering arrival times, a surprise element Maya had mentioned once in December, head counts, the whole thing. I had a shared note with Qley literally titled Maya 30 Coordination. Maya called me her logistics manager sometimes. She'd say it at dinner with her friends. Everyone would laugh. I'd laugh. I took it as affectionate shorthand for reliable. Looking back, I think she was just being accurate. For about the past year, Gavin's name had been coming up more often. A coworker of hers. She'd started referring to him as her work husband, which I'd taken as harmless office shorthand. The kind of thing people say. Whenever I asked a gentle question about the friendship, I'd get a gentle but firm reframe in return. I need you to trust my friendships. You're projecting. This is about your relationship with uncertainty, not about Gavin. 6 weeks before the Tuesday conversation, I brought it up one last time. She said, I need a partner who can hold space for my emotional complexity. I took it as a request. I spent 2 weeks trying to be more present, more attuned. More of whatever that was supposed to mean. It hadn't occurred to me that she already had that position filled. That she'd organized things, so I managed the structural layer, and Gavin managed the emotional one, and both systems were running quietly, and no one had told me that was the arrangement. I didn't know any of that yet when she sat down at the kitchen island. But I started to piece it together when she went to bed without any tension at all. I want to walk through the conversation accurately. I've replayed it enough that I know I'm not misremembering. Maya explained co-regulation the way someone explains a system they've thought through carefully. She'd heard about it on a podcast, a therapist talking about how physical closeness between trusted people helps regulate stress responses. She and Gavin had started using it during a rough project cycle. About 8 or 9 months ago, she said. Sometimes at the office after hours. Sometimes at his place when they were both working remotely. She spoke without defensiveness. That's the part that kept coming back to me afterward. Not guilty. Not careful. Just explaining. I asked how often. A few times a month. I asked where. She described the places. I asked when it had started. She gave me the timeline. Then I asked if Gavin's wife knew. She paused. Not the pause of someone caught. More like the pause of someone deciding how much background context a question deserves. She said that wasn't relevant to our situation. That Jessica and Gavin had their own dynamic, their own communication, and it wasn't her place to characterize what they did or didn't share with each other. I said it seemed like information Jessica might want to have. She said I was projecting, that I was taking my discomfort and redirecting it onto a third party to avoid the real issue, which was my difficulty with trusting her emotional intelligence. She said she needed me to work on that. I said goodnight. She went to bed without looking back, brushed her teeth, got in, was asleep in what felt like minutes. I stayed in the living room with the lights on. She slept fine. I didn't sleep at all. I didn't do anything impulsive that night. I sat with it. I went back through the last 18 months. Not obsessively, more like running an audit on a project that's been quietly drifting off scope. I look for where things started to slip. The apartment. Mine, heavily. The birthday planning, entirely mine. Holiday logistics, mine. When her car needed service, I handled it. When she needed a document notarized, I drove across town on my lunch break. Small tasks, each one reasonable in isolation, a lot of them stacked over a long time. I remembered a dinner from about 6 months ago. Her friends were over. Someone asked how Maya always seemed to have everything organized. Maya smiled and said, "That's what Mark's for. He's my logistics manager." Everyone laughed, including me. I had thought she was joking about how competent I was. I was revising that reading. I thought about what she'd said 6 weeks ago. I need a partner who can hold space for my emotional complexity. I'd taken it as a request. I'd spent 2 weeks trying to be more present, more attuned, whatever the right version of that was. Better check-ins, more patience. It hadn't crossed my mind that she already had the complexity handled, that she had it neatly organized. I managed the structural layer, Gavin managed the emotional one, and that the whole thing had been running without my knowledge for the better part of a year. The next morning, at 8:14 a.m., she texted me from work. "Hey, can you please not bring up the Gavin thing at dinner this week? It makes things uncomfortable." "No, are you okay?" "No, how did you sleep?" Just a preemptive scheduling note around my feelings. She was already at her desk when she sent it. She'd thought about how to word it carefully enough to do that, and not carefully enough to ask how I was doing. I wrote back, "Understood." That was the last time I tried to accommodate her. By that afternoon, Maya had already talked to her friends. I know this because at 2:17 p.m., Qley texted me. Qley is warm, she thinks carefully about emotional dynamics, and she had clearly been given a version of events. The text said, "Hey Mark, Maya mentioned you're working through some stuff around her friendships. I just wanted to say healthy non-sexual intimacy is really valid, and it doesn't threaten a real relationship. We're all rooting for you guys." That evening, Sarah posted an Instagram story. White text on a dark background. It said, "Don't shrink yourself for people who can't hold your light." I didn't respond to either. I sat there thinking about the fact that Maya had reached 3 people before I'd said a word to anyone. The story was already shaped. Mark is struggling with healthy intimacy. Mark is working through some stuff. We're rooting for him to get there. These were the 3 women who would be at the table with her at the Vein in 6 days. That week, I started looking at the logistics of unwinding things. I checked the Vein's cancellation window. I pulled up the hotel confirmation. I added up what was sitting on my card. $1,800 for the restaurant deposit, $1,200 for the hotel suite, $600 for the jewelry, another $432 in smaller items, $4,032 total, all pending. I wrote 4 sentences to Jessica and saved them as a draft. Not an accusation, an introduction, a brief description of what I'd been told directly, and an offer of information I thought she deserved to have. I didn't characterize what the arrangement meant. I didn't call it anything. I saved it and left it. Later that week, Maya texted to ask if I'd confirmed the seating layout with Qley. I replied, "It's been handled." She sent a thumbs up. 3 days before the birthday, I was home using the shared iPad. Maya and I had used it for household things, grocery lists, streaming, a shared calendar. Neither of us had ever treated it as a private device. It was just there. A notification came through while I was sitting with it. A text from Gavin, visible on the lock screen. "Can't wait for Friday. Last time helped so much." That was all. I want to be precise about what that did and didn't tell me. It wasn't explicit. It wasn't a confession of anything beyond what I already knew. What it told me was that the sessions were happening outside of work hours, that they were ongoing, that Friday 4 days away was already planned. He was anticipating it the way you anticipate something regular, something you've scheduled, something you're looking forward to. I sat with my hands flat on the table. Then I opened the draft email to Jessica. I read it once. 4 sentences, I hit send. Then, I called the Vein. I said I needed to cancel the Saturday reservation. The host confirmed the name. When she asked if there was anything to note in the system, there's an optional cancellation reason field. I typed, "Service no longer needed." Then I called the hotel and canceled the suite. I initiated the refund process on the full $4,032 in pending charges. The whole thing took about 40 minutes. After that, I drove to a place near the apartment and got a burger. I read most of a book I'd been meaning to finish for 2 months. I was home by 9. I was not happy. I want to be clear about that. 3 years. I had thought we were building something real. What I felt in that moment was not satisfaction. It was the very specific, exhausted relief of a person who has finally stopped waiting for a conversation that was never going to go the right way. I composed one text. I scheduled it to send at 6:02 p.m. on Saturday, 1 hour before the reservation that no longer existed. It said, "I resigned from logistics." Have a great birthday, Maya. That was the full extent of my action. I didn't draft anything else. I didn't rehearse anything. I'd spent 3 years explaining myself to someone who used my explanations to recalibrate her deflections. I was finished explaining. The next day, Maya asked if we could check in on where things stood. I said, I think we're past processing. She looked at me. What does that mean? I said I didn't think another conversation was going to resolve anything between us. She was quiet for a moment. Then she did what she always did. She recalibrated. Tilted slightly, like she was integrating new data. She said, I hear you. Some space might actually be good. For both of us. Then she asked if I was excited about Saturday. I said, I want it to go exactly as you deserve. She smiled. She said she knew I'd get there. That she was proud of how I was working through it. She hugged me and held on for a second. I let the hug end. I said I needed to get back to something. I don't want that moment to sound like something it wasn't. It wasn't triumphant. It was just sad. She heard I wanted to go exactly as you deserve and translated it as arrival as me finally reaching the understanding she'd been waiting for. She heard what she needed to hear. That had always been her gift. Someone would say something, she'd decide what it meant. That week I'd moved some of my things to a storage unit. Not everything enough to make the next few weeks manageable from a practical standpoint. The text was already written and scheduled. There was nothing left to do. She said she knew I'd get there. She had no idea where I'd actually gone. I was at home on Saturday when the text started. The first one came at 7:08 p.m. Where are you? No question mark. Just those 3 words. I didn't respond. 7:09 mark. We're at the Vein. They don't have our reservation. What's going on? 7:11. They're saying it was canceled. Is this a mistake? Can you call them? 7:14. Mark, please call me. 7:17. I'm calling you. I let it go to voicemail. I found out later what had happened inside the restaurant. Maya and her friends had arrived dressed up, photos already taken on the way over. They walked in and gave the name. The host checked the tablet. Nothing. She checked again. The system showed the reservation had been canceled by the account holder, all charges refunded. In the notes field, the cancellation reason I'd typed when I called. Service no longer needed. Maya asked if there had been a system error. The host confirmed it had not been a system error. Maya checked her phone. My text had arrived at 6:02 p.m. She'd missed it until that moment. I resigned from logistics. Have a great birthday, Maya. She read that standing at the host stand of the Vein, with Qley and Sarah and Jen right there beside her. 7:22. I can't believe you did this. 7:24. This is genuinely unhinged, Mark. Pick up your phone. 7:31. Are you serious right now? 7:45. We ended up somewhere else. I hope you're happy. Then a long gap. Nearly 2 hours of quiet. I wasn't celebrating. I made a sandwich around 8. Watched something I'd been putting off for weeks. A normal Saturday evening, just quieter than most. I wasn't waiting for an update. I'd already done what needed doing. I pieced the next part together from a mutual friend, a few days later. The Vein doesn't do walk-ins on Saturday nights. That's not how that restaurant works. The 4 of them ended up at a diner about 2 blocks away. The table was mostly quiet for a long time. Qley ordered a grilled cheese. Nobody had the right words. I'm not going to pretend I feel nothing about that image. Qley had texted me in genuine good faith. Sarah's post was probably meant as solidarity. They'd been handed a story and they'd believed it. They didn't deserve a diner booth in formal clothes on what should have been a celebration. But Maya had told them that story. And they were sitting in the chapter she hadn't written for them. At 11:43 p.m. I received an email. It was from Maya's work address. Subject line, what you did. I'm not going to reproduce the whole thing. The relevant parts. She said I had deliberately sabotaged her most important milestone. She called what I'd done manipulative and calculated. She said she had been nothing but honest with me throughout our relationship, which is a remarkable sentence, given everything, and that I had repaid that honesty with cruelty. She said I would regret this. She sent that at 11:43 p.m. on a Saturday night from her employer's email system. I read it. I forwarded it to my personal address immediately. I saved it. Then I went to sleep. I want to be precise here, because the timeline matters. I had canceled a dinner reservation I was paying for. That was the total of what I had done. She responded by sending a threatening message from a company-owned account, documented on corporate servers, timestamped at nearly midnight. I didn't create that. She did. Monday morning, I wrote 3 sentences to Maya's company's HR department. I said my name. I noted that a communication containing threatening language had been sent to me from a company email address. I forwarded the original email as documentation. I didn't editorialize. I didn't ask for a specific outcome. I reported a professional threat to the appropriate channel and let them handle it from there. I didn't know at the time what was happening on Gavin's end. What I found out later, Jessica had reached out to Gavin over the weekend after receiving my email. I don't know the details of that conversation, that's their marriage, but he arrived at work Monday visibly shaken. HR was now dealing with 2 overlapping situations involving the same 2 people. Maya's email to me, and whatever had surfaced about the off-hours arrangement when that came up in the context of the investigation. The work-husband situation, which several colleagues had apparently been aware of over the past year, was now the subject of an HR file. Maya was placed on administrative leave pending review. I gave her 60 days to find another place to live. She's not on the lease. There were no shared accounts to untangle. The separation was clean once she understood it was real. Sarah, Jen, and Qley, who had watched a host check a tablet and come up empty, who had sat at a diner in their going-out clothes, who had watched Maya's texts go from confused to demanding to furious to silent over the course of one Saturday night. They stopped repeating the story they'd been given about me. I didn't call any of them. I didn't explain anything. The narrative just ran out of people willing to carry it. On Monday afternoon, I called the jeweler. The custom piece had been sitting in a box, design confirmed, deposit paid, never engraved. I arranged the return. They refunded the full amount. That was the last item on the list. 6 months later, the apartment is quiet in the mornings. I'm seeing someone now who says what she means clearly, directly, without me having to decode it or wonder what the subtext was. I'm not her logistics manager. I'm just the person she's with. I miss who I thought Maya was. I don't miss who she turned out to be. Some people spend years being someone's logistics. I did it for 3, and then I filed my resignation.